Super Smash Bros. As a concept has a lot of appeal for a lot of players for a lot of reasons. Most traditional fighters, whether they're Street Fighter or Killer Instinct or Dragon Ball FighterZ or whatever, have their own unique metagames and their own rules, but Super Smash Bros. Has something altogether special that no other game has: the doubles format. And it's not the same as the Team Fighter format that Marvel vs. Capcom introduced. In Super Smash Bros., doubles is exactly what it sounds like. Teams of two competing against each other. Doubles is a completely different beast from singles, and that doesn't just apply to Smash. Try to imagine how different games like Mortal Kombat would be if there were 4 fighters on screen in teams of 2 each playing against each other. With a game as mobility focused as Super Smash Bros., the metagame changes entirely. Characters and strategies that are considered borderline useless in singles now have utility in one form or another. Take a character like Ganondorf. He's generally considered fairly weak in singles. He's very slow, his frame data isn't particularly generous, and his recovery is subpar, just to name a few weaknesses. His strengths include having broad, sweeping, long-lasting hitboxes, an extremely high weight allowing him to survive for much longer, and enviable kill power, more than almost everyone else in the cast. In doubles, every single one of his weaknesses is downplayed, and every single one of his strengths is amplified by the fact that he has a partner. His speed isn't an issue when all the competitive stages are so chaotic that it's entirely plausible for the action to come to him. His frame data doesn't need to be generous when his partner can hand him opponents on a silver platter, and a particularly astute partner can ensure that at no point is Ganondorf knocked off stage to the point where he can't recover, and even if he is, it's possible to save him. Now granted, this doesn't mean that Ganondorf is a top tier doubles character. Just because he has a partner doesn't mean he suddenly has no weaknesses. But what it does mean is that doubles is such a completely different game that the meta is changed entirely, turning a character like Ganondorf into something that, in the right hands and with the right strategies, will have an easier time surviving and possibly even thriving compared to a singles environment. However, because doubles is such a wildly different game, many players will approach it differently compared to singles. Lots of players will simply treat it as two 1 vs 1s that are occurring on the same screen, and not only is that doing a disservice to the meta that doubles offers, it's also doing a disservice to you and your partner. Individual skill matters, of course, but not nearly to the degree that proper synergy and communication will. This video is here to help you better understand how to work with your partner to improve your doubles game. Just because the meta is different doesn't mean that the game goes by different rules. Characters that are already very strong in singles will have just as easy a time, if not more so, in doubles because, just like Ganondorf, their weaknesses are downplayed. The few exceptions include single-player throw combos such as the Ding Dong or the Beep Boop, and Bayonetta, who relies on her strings being uninterrupted, and that's much harder to do when there's another opponent on screen to be aware of. The most important thing to keep in mind with regards to doubles is that many kill moves in Super Smash Bros. Are single hit, with somewhat demanding attributes including frame data and hitbox sizes. These moves are trickier to land in singles because you rarely have control over what your opponent does and where they go at any given time. However, in doubles, this is not the case. Here in Nova Scotia, 2 of our most threatening teams are a Duck Hunt and a Rob, and a Bowser and a Sheik. They're both staple threats in my region because they both perform the exact same strategies. Duck Hunt and Sheik both have incredible overpowering neutral games, but they have some difficulty landing kills, which neither Rob nor Bowser have any issue with whatsoever. With some proper positioning and foresight between the team members, a grab from Sheik or Duck Hunt can be a kill as low as 80%, sometimes lower. This is why the meta changes so drastically and why characters like Ganondorf have an easier time working in doubles. If your character excels in one area but falters in another, your teammate can make up for your weaknesses and turn you both into a well-oiled murder machine. This is all basic stuff, things that go hand in hand with doubles, and things that you'd realize immediately if you were to play the game with 3 other friends for an extended period of time. But it all still needs saying. Just as my region has a pair of unlikely teams that regularly threaten the competition, we have as many teams that constantly play doubles like, as I said, the game is 2 1 vs 1s. Teams that separate immediately and fight their fights without ever trying to coordinate some combos or kills. So now that the basics are covered and we've established that doubles is a different game from singles, let's get to some specifics. When playing in a doubles set, your team is separated into 2 roles, but which role that is depends on positioning and context of the scenario you're in. The point man or aggressor is usually the one in the front. He's the one that forces the exchanges to happen. You usually want the character between you two that has the stronger neutral game to have this role, because they'll have more options and opportunities to force something to happen. Anything that results in the point man getting a grab can, and usually will, almost always lead into a follow-up from the support. This is usually the character that doesn't have a strong neutral game, but their punish and follow-up game is stronger than their teammate. This character is the one that waits and watches for the point man to create an opening or a potential for a follow-up and executes them. The support's secondary job is to make sure that, should their point man lose the exchange, their teammate doesn't get rocked too hard and breaks up the combo by any means necessary, even if that means hitting his own partner. If one teammate loses a stock and returns on the recovery platform, they are always the support, if temporarily, in order to break up the 2 versus 1 that's been happening in their absence. Life support falls to whichever teammate is still on stage when their partner gets knocked off stage. This can mean anything from trying to wall both opponents to one side of the stage while allowing the partner to recover, or if their partner has been gimped, trying to go off stage and knock their partner up with an up air or something to keep them aloft. Finally, the stock tank's job is strictly to survive, no matter what. This could mean avoiding all possible confrontations, sometimes even if the advantage would be theirs, in order to preserve their stock for whatever reason. Whether it's because their partner is about to lose their 3rd stock and they are still on their 2nd, or because they're simply at a high percent and they don't want to lose their stock, or because their partner is Lucario and they're working the Anubis strategy. Whatever the reason, the stock tank wants nothing to do with confrontation and avoids everything but the most guaranteed of follow-ups. Some characters are better at certain jobs than others, depending on their individual kits. For example, Sheik is an excellent point woman, able to use her overwhelming frame data and movement to get a hold of the enemy and toss them to her support, but because of her weight and her more specific hitboxes, she doesn't make for the greatest of life supports or stock tanks. Conversely, Bowser makes for an excellent support. He doesn't have the frame data or movement to be especially threatening on the front lines, and his massive body makes him a liability more than anything. He has powerful single-hit moves, but none of them send them back to his partner, and the coup pas depends on him being uninterrupted, which is a tall order in doubles. However, because of his incredible weight, and because Whirling Fortress is such a broad, long-lasting move, he makes for a very strong stock tank and a halfway decent life support. And because his hitboxes are so large, he can follow up out of almost anything his partner sends his way. It may be a bit difficult to wrap your head around at first. You'd think a big, bulky dinosaur should be the point man, and the small, frail ninja should be the support. But the results speak for themselves, and it makes far more sense for the faster character to be up front and to get the opening they need while their partner stays in position to capitalize. To say that Sheik and Bowser would play the entire set, or even just the match, as the preferred roles isn't realistic at all. Super Smash Bros. Is a very chaotic game by nature. There are dozens of things to keep track of at any given time, and knowing where you are, where your partner is, and where your opponents are, all factor into the decisions you need to be making in order to optimize your play as a doubles teammate. This is called game sense, and it refers to how much a player can keep track of at any point, and how good their decisions are based on the information the game has given them. I can't possibly list every single scenario on every single stage for every single doubles composition, so here's just a few examples. What you're seeing now is my doubles run with Raziek, Nova Scotia's Cloud main, at Get On My Level 2017. It was the first time we had ever teamed together in Smash 4, and we made it to 7th place. Not bad for a pair of first-time partners at a Canadian International, I think. I'll list a couple of examples of what we as a team did right individually. It's not so much the follow-ups that we got, but the decisions that we made in order to allow these follow-ups to happen in the first place, while also making the decisions that prevented our opponents from making follow-ups as well. Keep in mind, I am the Duck Hunt and Raziek is the Cloud. Notice my movement at around 1 minute into the match. As soon as Raziek got the kill on Ryu, he was being threatened by Diddy Kong, and I don't attempt to pressure Diddy's movement by hanging back, I just try to hit him. Cloud has a very fragile recovery, and as soon as he's off stage, my role goes from point man to life support, to make sure that my partner makes it back safely. Once I know that he's made it, I begin Ryu's second stock with a grab and a forward throw, hoping that Raziek would be able to follow up, but noticing that he's preoccupied with Diddy, I instead immediately put myself between Cloud and Ryu, giving us both the offensive and defensive options, while forcing our opponents to fight through us both in order to regain stage advantage. As soon as my partner is hit, I drop whatever I'm doing and I run straight to him. Immediately into the beginning of the third match, Raziek managed to catch both Diddy Kong and Ryu into the same cross slash. I recognized the follow-up potential and went for a full hop neutral air, which hit Ryu back into Cloud, who hit him back into me for an up air. I could have attempted to follow up even more, but Diddy Kong had pushed Cloud off stage, which is when I ignored Ryu in favor of making sure that my partner was safe. This one decision led into not only me ensuring my partner's safety, but it also cost Diddy Kong his stock and later Ryu's as well when he tried to interrupt us. There are two things I always try to keep in mind when I'm playing doubles. The first is to try and prioritize the 2 versus 1 potential as much as possible. Towards the end of the same match, Raziek had knocked Diddy Kong towards me and far off stage, leaving Ryu between us. I could have tried to pressure Diddy's recovery, but instead I focused on Ryu because if only for a few seconds, that would mean that the match was a 2 versus 1. Nothing came of my decision, but it did cause Diddy to believe he was safe to recover into the stage, which gave me the opportunity to just toss him back off. Raziek won the exchange between him and Ryu, putting both of our opponents off stage. They both were forced to recover into us, making them easy pickings for another cloud back air on Diddy for the kill, and for me to grab Ryu. Raziek's acting as support was on point, giving us the finishing touch kill at 80% and forcing Diddy to fight us 3 stocks to 1. The second thing to keep in mind is to always give your point man the space they need to operate. Nobody enjoys being passive in any fighting game, least of all one as movement intense as Super Smash Bros. But more often than not, I have seen teams, including my own partners, try to barrel past the point man and be the hero themselves. This can lead to a lot of problems almost immediately, because unless you and your teammate have coordinated your preferred positions in advance, your point man is going to trust you to stay put, and moving in front of him can cause a lot of friendly fire. This example, and a later set in the tournament, shows Raziek playing the role of stock tank while respecting my space as his point man. He knows that with his high percent combined with him having limit, he wants to stay as far away from the action as reasonable so he doesn't have to burn it on a recovery, and he only moves forward when he's absolutely confident it'll score a solid hit, even if it also gets me. He's holding onto his stock and his limit, waiting for Duck Hunt's more oppressive neutral game to give us both the opportunity we need in order to get the early kill that we want, and it pays off beautifully. A part of knowing how to play doubles is to know when you need to flex and adapt to the scenario your opponents present to you. As a Duck Hunt, my myriad of projectiles and my absurd grab range make me the obvious choice as the point man, and my kill moves are generally too unpredictable and too weak to get the results that we want. But that doesn't mean that, if I'm suddenly knocked away, Raziek should continue to play support. As soon as he has no point man, he becomes the point man, and I must play support and get as many follow-ups as I can before we are given the opportunity to switch back. Every opportunity and every capitalization you can get depends on the skill of your partner and on your characters. Not every opening is going to be the same across the entire cast. For example, if Bowser is throwing a high percentage opponent to his partner Sheik, Sheik may want to answer with a move that will knock the opponent back into Bowser, because he has so much more kill power than she does and his hitboxes are so much larger, whereas if Sheik were throwing to Bowser, he would just go for the big hit rather than try to play ping pong with his teammate. I am by no means a professional level player, in part because of my character choice, but I've always considered doubles to be one of my stronger suits, in part because of my character choice, even as far back as Super Smash Bros. Brawl. Unlike with the character guide on Duck Hunt I posted earlier this year, I can't go into particularly deep or enriching specifics on how to play doubles since there are so many options and possibilities, but hopefully you at least understand some of the ideas that I've laid out for you. The Duck Hunt and Rob team and the Sheik and Bowser team of Nova Scotia got to the point they are because of their unique synergies and the understanding of each other's roles in doubles. Like I said, individual skill is most definitely a factor, but you'll accomplish significantly more as a doubles teammate if all you do is run in, grab, and throw to your partner, than a highly skilled player that splits off from the carnage to focus on his 1 versus 1. Being a strong team requires communication, prior planning, and lots of practice to understand what roles work for you both and what options are available out of what moves your point man can get away with. Even something as simple as hey or yep is enough information to convey that you have your opponent in a disadvantaged state that your partner can capitalize. And don't ever be afraid to say help. Doubles is widely considered to be the more attractive format in Super Smash Bros. To play if not to watch, because the inclusion of a teammate and an extra opponent broadened the gameplay exponentially and turned it into something far more involving and unique. Do yourself a favor. The next time you play doubles, ask yourself mid-match if there's anything you can do to assist your partner, and count how many times you say no.